horses in order, and we won't come to that graphic till near the end. Calypto, let's talk about Calypto. Fourth in the Triumph Hurdle. I talked earlier actually about the form not being that great, but it's one of the front contenders here.
Yeah, just quickly to say also is that there's an awful lot of runners at the moment for the Betfair Hurdle. Yeah. So what I've done is I've had a good look at the leading contenders, and then I'm also going to speak about other horses that I think are potentially well handicapped, or horses that I'd like to take on in the race. Can't cover it, but hopefully with everything I say we'll have the winner. We'll start with Calypto. Now, Calypto has been heavily gambled, it's got to say. I mean, it's as low as best price at 5 to 1 now. It's been a lot bigger. Calypto, we've obviously only seen once this season, last seen on the 18th of October, Tiger Roll at Cheltenham. Last season, Calypto obviously ran at grade 1 level, and as many people said, because the jockey lost his eye and he was a little bit unfortunate. I wasn't one who thought that. More interestingly, I think, when we're looking at this race, I mean, the horse obviously had winning form at Newbury, and of course met Activel, who's the second favourite in the race, when they met for the first time last year. On that occasion, Calypto beat Activel 3 1/4 lengths off level weights. If you take a strict line of how they're weighted in this race, you kind of think that Calypto would probably come back out on top. What Calypto does is he travels like an absolute dream through his races, a high cruising speed, the horse, over 2 miles. But if I have to crab him a little bit, is he does that, and I mean, if you're a Betfair player out there, he's one that you can back and you'll get out an awful lot shorter, because he'll come there, have all the, I mean, against Activel, you know, he absolutely cruising. When the horse comes off the bridle and asks the question to put the race to bed, it's not immediate to me. He doesn't seem to, you know, accelerate, you know, like when you see him visually travelling, if God, this is going to win, you know, win off the track. He never does that. And
I thought Calypto, when they face each other, I thought they won very comfortably.
He did win very comfortably.
I mean, an easy 3.5 lengths.
It was an easy 3.5 lengths, but when I've seen him after that, he then went to Newbury again. It was, admittedly, it was on heavy ground against Little John. I mean, Little John's been running, you know, behind Dunraven Storm and things, so it's just surprising, you know, this form, how it works out way back then. I mean, a heavy ground, but he did the same thing that day. He travelled up like a good horse, and when he let him down, I thought it was the ground initially. I thought, well, perhaps it was the heavy ground that's, you know, blunted his speed at the business end, but again, he did a very similar thing against Tiger Roll this year. I mean, he must have been 8 lengths clear coming to the last, and immediately when he's asked to go, he's actually been beat in the race when odds on. I think the horse is
getting £6 from Tiger Roll.
Absolutely. Undoubtedly, the horse is well handicapped. I've got him, he's got an official mark of 143. I've got him at 156, which is £13, so it's just short of a stone ahead of the handicapper. Do I think he's value? No, I don't. I think there's potentially better handicap horses. I think the horse has got the class. Now we're going soft ground. I've just got this feeling the horse might be better. His best ideal conditions is good to soft.
And I would make the point that in that Triumph, Pearl Castle, Lindenhurst, 2 horses that have won since that race, actually won on the flat. There's nothing come out of that Triumph Hurdle of significant note. Let's talk about Octavia. I think it was a very good performance, good comeback. Third behind Bain in the Ladbroke Hurdle. Strong form. Missed Cheltenham last year, coincidentally, but lightly raced. Could be well handled. Could be anything. Yeah,
I think he was well handicapped when he was going to Ascot. Whether he's so well handicapped now, I'm not so sure. Now, I've got a bit of a relationship with this horse from last year. I backed him when he won at in a Grade 2 level at Kempton, so he's got the class. You know, this is not forgetting that this is a Grade 3 race, and I think it's really important to point that out. He won over an inadequate 2 miles and what was soft ground. Now, before I backed him, I was umming and ahhing. When I've seen it was soft ground, I thought, oh, really 2 miles, a bit too sharp for him. He managed to get the job done that day. It was good enough form, and I was slightly surprised that they decided not to go to Cheltenham with him, and they decided to go to Aintree. It's recently come about I've seen an interview with Harry Fry. They said they deliberately did that so they could protect his handicap mark. Now, when he ran in this race that you alluded to there at Ascot, he was a subject to a massive gamble. So off a mark of 137, I think they had him absolutely bang right for that day. Now, going into that race, I thought last year he was a well-handicapped horse. I had him performing to like 153. this race here that we're talking about, I mean, the Bayon's won the race. Pine Creek was second, who obviously came out of the Greatwood. I think Pine Creek improved a little bit. But Activale, on that race, you know, he's won well enough. It was a good comeback run. It was at grade 3 level. It was on slightly better ground. And it was run, for me, at a real good gallop. That's what I particularly liked about it.
Very difficult going as well, if I remember right.
It was. But what's the handicapper done to the horse is, for being beaten third, raised him £6. And now, from a horse I thought was, you know, would have been well handicapped, I now think it's only £10 ahead of the handicapper. What I would say is, I'm more keen now on him, now that soft ground's come, because with a Betfair Hurdle, you alluded some of the winners before, what you need. Zarkanda, who's now a 3 mile, managed to win over 2 miles. This race does go to a horse you do need to stay 2.5 miles, especially on what we have soft ground. So now the soft ground's come, I can see the horse finishing perhaps third or fourth without winning.
OK, well, Nicky Henderson's got a tremendous record in this race and actually won this race 4 times in the last 10 years. My Tent or Yours was one of them. He saddles Sign of Victory, one that I do like, actually. I mean, I think the form of beating Vibrato Faltat and behind Faheen, will, you know, everything that finishes behind Faheen, the machine, does well. Obviously, up in the weights, what's your view on Sign of Victory? Yeah,
Sign of Victory, when I obviously disappointed last time, it was pitched into Group 1 level at Kempton. Didn't run its race for me. I think what's really important for this horse is good ground. The horse looks quite buzzy to me. He's on the verge of just doing too much through his races. At times, he's shown he's been a little bit keen. Now, this race, where he did it ever so easy, that was on good ground over 2 miles, a listed race. Now, at the time, he took me by surprise. Clearly didn't take Nicky Henderson's team by surprise, because he was heavily backed that day into 15-8 favourite. I think he was about 7-2 in places drawn that morning. I remember thinking, how on earth have I got this horse so wrong? But as time's gone on, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Now, what did he beat if we look at it? Dalawan he beat in second, Nicky Henderson. Yes, he's franked the form, but he's been winning over 2.5 miles, looking like, and also 3 miles. Baradari's in third. He's won over 2 mile, 3.5 furlongs, looking like he wants a little bit further. Ted Spread was back in fourth. He was a stayer on the flat. So what I'm suggesting is this was a 2 mile race. Sign of Victory was beating stayers. So he may have well just been looking pretty. You don't really know when Geraghty would have sat down on the horse, how far he would have gone on. I think in behind, you know, it was a 2 mile race with a load of stayers in behind. He's just had more speed than them on the day. So I've got a slight doubt, but under 2 mile conditions on quick ground, he'd be respected. I think the ground's completely gone against him, and at this point he's still in. I'd be surprised if Nicky runs him on soft ground. From a handicap point of view, I've got him rated 160 off a mark of 149. I think he's vulnerable from a handicap park, and I'm more concerned of his buzzy nature.
OK. One of the most improved trainers this year, Dan Skelton, has Facino Rustico out of Novice Company. I would suggest this is a very hot race to even contemplate winning.
Yeah, I didn't really get this. I was surprised to see it so short, short in 14s, the betting.
12s.
And what I'd say to anyone who's interested in reading form is never ever look at the odds before. Do your research and in your own mind make your own decisions and then look at odds, because if you look at the odds first, you can sometimes be think, oh, you know, you look at things, but you'll be surprised if you can just take, well, that's what I do, right? Before I look at the form in my own mind and then I look at the market. And this was certainly one horse I did not have around there. In fact, I had him around the 33-1 mark. This horse...
Well, I had him around about the 50-1 mark. So
well, you know, and to be honest, I wasn't sure if I'd take that. I mean, the horse is 16-1, best price. He is shorter in a lot of other places. He's a big old chasing type. To me, looks like he needs a trip. He's slow. He's won at a Novice Hurdle at Newcastle, beating Zip Top even money. I mean, Zip Top, he won a Fakenham race. I mean, is it really grade 3 level? Before that, what's he beaten? He beat Hughesy in a Novice Hurdle class 4 round banger. Hughesy let the form down. Beg to differ, 50-1.
Are we going to wear eggs on our faces next week if it wins? I will come back with egg on my face.
I would be quite... I mean
maybe that'd be worth watching.
You can go... I mean, I suppose there is a bit of form with Amora Alato at Kempton on Boxing Day last year. He was in receipt of £8 from that horse. I mean, that looks not a bad run, but he's moved from Paul Nicholls to get down Scout, and then more importantly, this horse is bred by Milan, and they're 3 milers, and that's what he looks like he wants to me.
Okay, so we're putting a big red line for
Absolutely,
that one? Egg on face if it comes. Yeah. Right, okay, well, now we will come to one that you do like, Hawkeye. And we're not going to put the graphic up yet. Winner of the Fred Winter, actually, and very good form. Beat Cat Gary by the smallest of distances at Cheltenham. You think this one's strong form?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he took everyone by surprise. I mean, his price, his price of 33 to 1 would have said that on that day of the Fred Winter. I must say, of all the juveniles we had last year, he had the scope to develop and improve. You know, he wasn't fully furnished last year. I remember seeing him one day at Warwick and remember thinking, yeah, I can see you improving a lot. And he took me by surprise in that race. That we talked about, the Fred Winter, Cat Gary, Baradari was in that race. Strictly speaking, on that day, I had him performing to 153 winning his Fred Winter. He's got a mark now of 146, but I think he's improved. What really interests me about this horse...
Wasn't the 13 links behind the new one, was it?
No, it wasn't. it wasn't, no. It was this form here at Aintree, beginning of the season. Now, I was on. Yeah, I was sat on Bet Racing Nation, which is on every Saturday morning between 10 and half 11, and I tipped this horse up. And on the day, because I said I had Gardler Victor and Hawkeye on my ratings, the same horse, and I couldn't understand why Hawkeye was 6 to 1 and Gardler Victor was 3 to 1. And to my amazement, I was travelling on the train home, and someone said to me, "That horse you've tipped up has gone out to 12 to 1." So I went and had some more on, and he duly won the race. Now he was in receipt of £2 to Gardler Victor for a 2 1/4 length. So they basically come out the same horse. Now when I'm talking to Gardler Victor, I've got rated now 165. All of a sudden the mark 146 for Hawkeye. You start thinking, blimey, you could be seriously handicapped. Now, many will say, yeah, but it was Gardler Victor's first run of the season and it was round a speed track of Aintree. And at the time I may have agreed, but what Gardler Victor has proven is that he can actually round 2 miles in decent races. What, good ground?
Soft.
Soft ground, yeah. I'll come to that in a minute, about the ground, because I think it is interesting. Hawkeye, in a trainer quote I seen yesterday when I looked at this, the reason it drifted from 6 to 12, the trainer said the horse was unfit. So he's arrived on this day and he's managed to show that form. Now, the second horse, Eagle Hawk, hasn't been out, but he's around a 90 horse on the flat. The fourth horse did nothing for the form, but Handazan was back in 5th. Now, he has been out and he has franked the form against a horse called Ono Mac. And I followed Ono Mac and he's bolted up since at Market Race. And I think this is strong form. Now, since then, the horse went on to run at Haydock. Behind the new one, was put in pretty deep on bad ground. And more recently at Musselburgh, Carroll top weight 11-12, Rakana. Now, Rakana collaterally ties into a few other horses. I obviously haven't got time to do all the collateral lines because I'll be here till midnight. But on that form, on that strict form, this isn't quite good enough to take this race, because it falls short a few pounds. But he did make a bad mistake at the end. The ground, I take the point of that. He's obviously handles conditioned. I do think that there might be a case to be made that on better condition it could be better. I was a little bit disappointed to see that it had come up soft. I spoke to Tim Easterby this morning on the phone, told me he would definitely go for the race Saturday, providing it wasn't heavy ground. So they must feel that soft ground would probably be okay for the horse. And what more importantly I like about him as well as that form I've just explained, is that I keep on about the class angle. This is a grade 3. I like a horse to have proven in the grade. He's proven at championship pace, which he did in the Fred Winter. He's grade 3 winner. And he's a horse that's definitely improved for me, as is Gardler Victor's improved from last year as a novice, improved through. I am slightly disappointed. I'm not going to, that I see in the soft ground. He's 25 to 1, this horse, and I could see this horse running a massive, massive race.
Okay. Right, we've got time to go through a few more. Amor Alato, one of the ones that are outsiders here. And the talk, we don't know actually whether Snake Eyes will run. Obviously, the entrants are waiting for a few more to come out. Yesterday it was 7, today's 3 or 4. But that form does tie in with Snake Eyes, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. They're very closely. I mean, we talk about an outside. This is no outsider. This Amor Alato. I mean, this would be my second selection if I could have one. But being a man, I just have one.
It's your collateral form lines with Irving again, isn't it?
You've got to see you. Well, we can't get. When we just go back to as you've brought it up. I mean, we must give it a mention. I mean, Irving. I've made a great point to being overpriced for a champion hurdle. I've got rated 170.
Which people have commented on YouTube.
Absolutely, I've had plenty of stick, and you know, I don't. It is about, but you know, opinions are like backsides. We've all got one.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what racing's all about. And I do like that, and do share your views on Twitter or wherever. But Irvin, he beat this horse off level weights 5 lengths. A certain cup final was back in third that day. Now, cup finals obviously been running very well in handicaps. On that form there, you could argue that he comes out of the mark of 157, runs off a mark of 140. The only thing that would put me off slightly, it wasn't his last run at Sandown when there was money. AP McCoy was on that day into 9-4 favourite, and I don't know, he's put a few of those runs in before.
Okay, right. What we're going to do is we're going to put your selection up on the screen. Hopefully they will. You've seen it once earlier. Hawkeye.
So this is my selection, Hawkeye. So what we've got there is the horse, the name of the horse, and where it says OR, that's the official handicappers. That's the British Horse Racing Authority. They've got him in 146. My rating on that form I talked about, Gardner Victor 165. What I would stress to people is, yes, going back him for Saturday. If it doesn't happen Saturday for one reason or the other, stick him in your horse tracker, because when he turns up on good ground somewhere, championship pace, I think he'll still be well handicapped.
And certainly at Aintree.
Somewhere like that. So, I mean, listen, you've got 25 to 1 about him on Saturday.
So what you're saying is, at the end of the day, Hawkeye, you think, is £19 ahead of the handicapper. And we haven't necessarily seen the best.
Absolutely not.
Right, okay. Right, okay. Just very quickly, one or two others on tour seeding. I mean, who out of those three? And
just to quickly go back to Snake Eyes, because it was, you know, a Mora Lotto. He does need a few to come out of the race before he could get in. But again, he's a horse that it's based on one run, and that's that Sandown run. He's been turned over at 5-2 on before. He travels through the race. I'm not sure whether there's a breathing issue, but if not for the first time last time, he found absolutely nothing. So I'd avoid him just on that count.
Okay.
And yeah, on tour, Evan Williams won really well, over 2.5 miles on soft ground at Haydock. Dalawan was, funny enough, was in that race that tied him with Sign of Victory.
Okay, right. Let's get the details on the screen about how they can contact you.
Yeah, we're doing this obviously every week on a Tuesday between 6 and 6:45, and obviously we want everyone to be part of it. And you might be new to racing, you might want me to talk about a horse, you might want to learn some of my skills, but you can do that, or I want my Twitter there at ValueRater, or you can email me value.rater@outlook.com. That's value.rater@outlook.com. And if I can't cover it on the show, of course I will get back to you myself in good time. But please, any questions you've got, don't think they're silly questions, because I do appreciate that our sport is very complicated.
Absolutely, and we did get quite a few questions first time out, and we've had a couple of those out as well. Finally, before we go, just to remind you, we are running a competition. We run that at the beginning. The picture that we showed was to say who won the Betfair Hurdle last year. You can keep tweeting us away. You can email Matt as well. We'll do that draw tomorrow, and we will.
There we are. There's the.
There you go. So
jump in and that is jumping the last flight of hurdles in last year's Betfair Hurdle.
And that's what you want Hawkeye to be doing this year. Right, Matt, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
No, thanks, it's been great.
Thank you very much indeed. That's about it. We are back next week. We're going to look back on this race and look ahead a bit to Cheltenham. We'll see you next week at 6.